Hey guys, welcome to the Whitetail Anonymous podcast number 6. Today, Josh Bias and I will be interviewing Nathan Killen from Monsters Inc. Nathan is a great deer hunter. You've probably read some articles and stuff that have been about him, some deer he's taken. Today, we're going to talk about some tactics, a little bit about what he's doing with Monsters Inc. and some of the deer he's killed. I'm really excited about it. I know Josh is like a kid in a candy store right now. He's been looking forward to this ever since he's been calling me all day about it. So, no further ado, Nathan, thanks for coming on the podcast. Say hey to everybody.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for being with us and listen to us for a few minutes. Nathan, why don't you start here? Tell us a little bit about yourself. For people who don't know you, most of them do, but the ones who don't, give us a little bio about you.
Well, of course, I'm Nathan Killen. I live in Russell County, Virginia, one of the southwestern counties here in Virginia, and I've been bow hunting since '83. Been about 34 seasons now, I guess. Um, and I've mostly been just a bow hunter since probably 2000. I've been, uh, mostly targeting mature deer, and I've had pretty good success since then. But that's just my passion is bow hunting these
Yeah,
big
yeah,
whitetails.
yeah.
After.
Yeah, I think that's a majority of our passion. A lot of us aren't as lucky as you, or if you guys could see the trophy wall I'm looking at right now, he's had a lot of success. That's why a lot of people. This will be a very interesting podcast to learn tactics and stuff like that. Nathan, I know you're part of Monsters Inc. Tell us a little bit about that. What is Monsters Inc.?
Well, Monsters Inc. is just a group of guys. I created the group. It's been 5 or 6 years ago now, and there's 12 of us. I created it for us really to just pretty much have a group that we could communicate and share stories and trail camera pictures and stuff like that. And it's actually grew into a lot more than that now. Actually, thanks to Chad Annan, he's been the driving force behind it. We've got some pretty good people, behind us, pretty good companies. But we're just an average group of guys that just like chasing these big whitetails.
Yeah, yeah. Where all do you guys hunt, Nathan? And there's 12 of you, all over the country, the East Coast, or where do you mostly hunt?
Most of us actually are in West Virginia, but we hunt Virginia, Ohio, West Virginia, and one of our guys is out in Cody, Wyoming.
Oh wow, wow, wow.
And,
That's a that's a beautiful country out there in Wyoming.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a let's start here. Some of these deer you've killed in southern West Virginia, and a lot of our followers are in southern West Virginia. Josh is from there. I'm actually from southwest Virginia, right on across the Virginia line there. And
Okay.
what are some of your scouting tactics to get on these deer here? I mean, are you trail camera junkie, or I mean, what are you doing to find these deer?
Well, yeah, I definitely use trail cameras. To me, they're a valuable tool, for anybody that's interested in chasing these deer and learning their whereabouts and putting together their core areas and stuff. I usually start with just trying to locate. Once I find a buck that I'm interested in hunting, um, I'll try to locate his bedding. The areas that I feel like that he's going to spend most of his time in, which would be his bedding areas, and and it really seems like those type of areas are mostly in steep, thicker type spots.
Yeah, yeah.
Away from places that are hard to get to. That most hunters aren't willing to go into.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I know. If you find those places, in a lot of the southern West Virginia mountains and Virginia mountains, if you get away from those logging roads and those easy walking accesses, you're going to find the mature deer. They're going to hide out back in there. That's kind of take it down to the basics here, I guess. Well, what do you look for in finding a bedding area for these deer? Do you look for the beds? Do you get out? I mean, what makes you say this buck's bed here?
well, when I'm out scouting, seems like the first places that I go is the steeper areas. Um, but really, the only time that I'm in the flatter laying ground is mostly when I'm shed hunting or stuff. But whenever I'm actually looking for deer to hunt, I start with the steeper areas. Most of the time it's the like the end of a main ridge. If you've got the end of a main ridge that drops off really steep and it's thick, and I really like ridges that point in the eastern direction, or hunt the point on the eastern end of the ridge. But once I find a area that I feel like a buck is bedding in, then I'll start branching out from there, looking for maybe trying to decide which direction he may be going, to feed, and then start looking for funnels, maybe little benches or little points, or just anything that he would use to travel, from his bedding area to whatever direction he may be going, and just start setting up trail cameras in those type areas. Um, During the summer, I use mineral a lot as an attractant, and use my cameras on them. But once they lose their velvet, it seems like they stop using
Yeah.
mineral very much, and I start placing my cameras over any area that I may have found back in the winter that might have had some good rubs, stuff like that. Any type of travel quarter. But
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as the beds themselves, I don't look for areas that if I find a very large bed that and there's not a lot of other beds around, then I feel like that's probably a good deer. If you find areas that there's a lot of beds around, then I feel like it's probably just a family group of does
Gotcha.
using
Gotcha.
that. So
Yeah.
I really don't pay much attention to those type of beds.
Yeah. Something you said there, and I know Josh is really big on an east-west running ridge, and I've heard him say that to me 3 or 4 times, and we get asked that question a lot. I mean, what makes that east-west running ridge so special? I mean, what's the difference in that in a north-south or a southeast or whatever running ridge? What makes that so special?
Well, on an eastern pointing, east-west running ridge, if you're hunting on the east end of that, the wind is going to be more in your favor, because most of our winds come out of the west.
Yes.
And if you're on the very end of that, that actually gives the buck, in my opinion, a false sense of security, because if you're there and set up right, the wind can be in his favor and yours at the same time. If
Gotcha.
that makes sense to you.
You're giving him you're hunting with the best wind, and so is he. And you're hunting.
Yeah, but it's not that easy to find that kind of a setup, and I don't always get to hunt that type of a setup.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
If I was to pick an ideal one, that would probably be it.
Now, are you?
Wind almost wrong for you and perfect for him. It's
Exactly.
a very fine line right there. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Get in there on him. That's a. Are you? Now, go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt there. The deer I killed in 14 Holyfield, it was like that. It was a bad wind, but by the time that he was going to get my wind, I should have had him shot, because it was perfect for him. But by the time he got up there and got into my wind, I was already drew back on him, and I had him shot before he realized he was actually winding me. He was sticking his tongue out and moistening his nose whenever I released the arrow. He was onto me, but it was just a little bit too late. He was about 5 minutes late. But
Yeah.
I agree with Nathan 100% on everything he just said. And I like not to take over or say anything, but just this is like John said, one of my favorite things is that east-west running ridge. And what I found that I like about the east-west running ridge is, we get a lot of north-south winds too at times, and you could get just under, say on the south side of that east-west running ridge, and you got a north wind, and then you got thermals coming up, and then you got that north wind coming over top, and the thermals are coming up, and it's kind of creating a pocket of air just under the ridge, and those bucks know that, and they just cruise back and forth because they're seeing checking both sides at the same time.
Right.
You got to be real careful with your scent control. But the deer I killed last year, that's where I killed him at, is in a place like that. But I just wanted to, get my 2 cents in on there as far as why I like that. But go ahead, Nathan.
No, Nathan. I know Josh and I both. I'm big on hunting in November. You know, we tried the early season gig out, but it's just hot, mosquitoes, bears, everything else up in the mountains that you deal with. When's your time to get on these deer? Are you a November guy? Are you an early season guy? Are you all year guy? Or what do you do?
I'll be honest with you, man. I'll take them anytime I can get 'em.
Yeah, I hear
Uh,
that. That's a
yeah, a lot of the deer that I've killed, especially specific deer, have come, you know, before Veterans Day. Anytime through October up until Veterans Day. But if I was to pick a favorite time period, it would be any time between, Halloween and Thanksgiving, of course, and that's most everybody else's favorite time too. But I haven't actually got to hunt October in 4 seasons now. My job just doesn't allow it, so most of my hunting now occurs during November and December, and I've actually killed a couple of decent bucks in December over the past 2 years. So I've learned how to hunt it, and I've actually got to where I like hunting December just about as well as I do October and November.
I swear the best week of hunting in the state of North Carolina is the first week of December. And we have a little bit later rut down here, and you can, a lot of the holiday hunters are gone by then, and you can get on some deer during that period of time. I agree with you. And the bears go away in southern West Virginia, so you can really get on some deer during that period of time. The bears will finally start to leave you alone. So,
Yeah, and I enjoy the last week of December a lot too myself. And I normally don't hunt over corn, but I will bait. That last week of December, I will put feed out because there's in their mountains. There's very scarce food by then. If you can get them on feed. I've only killed one really big. Well, he wasn't really big. He was a 131-inch deer, but during that time frame. But I've had a lot of encounters with some really good deer. In that last week between Christmas and the last day of season.
Yeah,
I enjoy hunting December now and then.
Yeah, it's a great time to get on deer. Nathan. I mean, are you hunting more public land, or are you private? Do you have leases? Or are you? What are you doing about that?
No, I don't have any leased land that I hunt, and actually 90% of my hunting is done on public ground. The only private land that I actually have to hunt now is my 12 acres that I own here at home, and I've got some property where I work that I can hunt. And but other than that, yeah, I hunt the mountains right, here in Appalachians.
Yeah. That's
I know that. I think that Ohio buck you killed this past year, he was public land, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah. Now we had private property access into this public land. It allowed us to get deeper into the public, away from some other public access areas. So it definitely worked in our advantage.
Also, you was coming through on private and accessing public on the backside, which that helps a lot. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Get you in deeper.
And I think you're not to, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Big deer you killed in West Virginia was on it was coal company land, which is pretty much public land too, wasn't it, Nathan?
Oh yes, yeah. He was open to anybody that could buy a West Virginia license.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's I really look up to hunters who do it on public land. That's tough. I know the Orange Army down here. If you go to public land, you better not go more than 10 foot up in there, or get 25 foot to get away from the stray bullets flying everywhere down here in North Carolina. So that's make you nervous on public land. That's just pretty awesome.
I've got to where I don't even hunt down here anymore because you just can't. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy deer hunting, but it's just so hard. I enjoy shooting mature deer. Now, I'll shoot a few does here, for me, early season, but I enjoy chasing, mature deer. And it's hard to find a 3-year-old deer down here. You find a 5-year-old, you might as well found something, the eighth wonder of the world or whatever.
Now, Nathan, on public land, are you a climber guy? Do you pack and stack in? How do you hunt it?
Well, it just depends on where I'm hunting. In Ohio, I do not pre-hang stands. I try to stay very mobile. And here in Virginia, I do hang a lot of stands before season, but I also use a mobile setup too. So it just depends on the circumstance and what I need to do at the time. So,
What kind of mobile setup are you using while you be packing in?
um, I use a lone wolf. I think it's the Assassin um, climbing stand. It's actually the lightest and smallest climbing stand that they make, and I also use lock-on stands too. So,
Okay. Well, here I think
yeah.
it's a good way to go into it here. Let's talk about some of the deer you killed. You know,
All right.
let's start with I guess let's start with the West Virginia buck. You know, we are most of our followers are in the southern region of West Virginia. Now, if I was hearing you talk to Josh, and you killed that deer in 2006, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
2006. What time frame was it? Was it in the month of November? Or?
Yeah, I think it was November the 2nd. Um, but
Yeah. Or did you? There he is. Josh got kicked off. Sorry, guys. We had a little technical difficulty there. He got him
oh,
back. Got him back on. Okay. What did he end up scoring, Nathan?
he grossed 184 and 3/8 and netted 175 and 6/8 or something like that.
If you guys could see the deer I'm looking at right now through Skype video, you'd be like, "Wow!" If you haven't looked at it, look it up. It's a great looking deer. Let's tell the story, Nathan. I mean, how'd you? Let's start here. How'd you find the deer?
Well, of course, I started hunting McDowell County in 2005, and I didn't kill a deer that year. I passed up some nice bucks, looking for one of the bucks that you hear about in those
Yeah,
southern counties.
yeah.
But during the that following spring, I done a lot of shed hunting over there, and I found a lot of sheds. But one of them in particular, looked like it was going to be a pretty nice deer, and I got to looking through some of my trail camera pictures from the previous year, and I thought that I had a picture of the deer, but I wasn't for sure. But I started running trail cameras that summer, and started getting a picture of him actually on June the 5th, I think it was. And by June the 5th, he already had, it was either 10 or 11 points.
Oh wow.
And, yeah, and
You knew it was a
of
mega
course,
giant. Yeah.
I just kept running trail cameras, through the summer. And I would, study topo maps of the area, trying to figure out other places that I thought that he might be. And actually, the first picture that I got of him was probably a mile to a mile and a half from where I found his shed from the previous year.
Wow.
So I placed cameras in both locations, and I actually got pictures of him in both locations. So I started just moving my cameras around and was able to put together what I felt like was his, home range. And it started getting closer to season, so there was a big reclaimed area pretty much right in the middle of his, what I figured was his home territory. And the very first evening that I actually went to see if I could see the deer in velvet, I seen him, and which blew my mind. But anyway, I seen him one more time after that before season came in. And I had hung, I think, 4 different stands to hunt the deer.
Yeah.
And of course, part of his home range was easily accessible, and there was several other people that knew of the deer, and they were hunting him as well. And my plan was to actually start hunting where the other people were going to be hunting too in early season. And what my hopes was, that I could, is hopefully kill the deer early.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about everybody else. But I felt like if I started hunting him early, my pressure, along with everybody else's pressure, would hopefully force him to the area that I knew nobody else would be hunting. And now, whether that happened or not, I don't know, because I don't know if anybody ever seen him over in that the area where everybody else was hunting. But I actually ended up killing him in the area that I knew other people wasn't hunting him. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
killed him actually the 5th day that I hunted him.
I was getting ready to ask you that. How many days did you hunt him? When did you start hunting him? Did you wait till October, November? What'd you do? Or were you up there
No,
from?
I actually started hunting him, from opening day of bow season. And you know what? I didn't put, that much pressure on him. I think that I hunted over there where the other guys were hunting, I think 3 times actually. and I didn't see him, of course, but then the stand that I killed him out of, I hunted it one time before I actually killed him. I like watching the weather. It seemed like what the once the weather starts cooling down, I'll start hunting my better spots a little bit more.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
The morning that I actually killed him was actually the very first, from my recollection, the very first morning that we had a good frost for the year.
Yeah,
So.
that's always a good day. I was getting ready to ask you that if it was a morning or evening hunt that you got him there. That's how did the kill happen, man? I'm interested to hear it. I mean, most people remember every detail of the big deer they've killed. Was it a pretty neat kill, or was it just happened?
Oh yeah, it happened like you want it to.
Yeah, obviously he's on your wall.
I was my stand. Of course, I was in my stand early that morning, and I hadn't seen any rutting activity leading up to that. I hadn't even seen any scrapes. But on my way into my stand that morning, there's a logging road that comes through. It was probably no more than 5 yards from the base of my tree, and there was a good sized scrape that had just been opened up right there.
Yeah.
And so that gave me some hopes. And but my stand was placed right. Normally I don't hunt on top of a ridge, but this particular spot, was a good funnel. It had some good edge habitat. Plus, it dropped off really steep on one side, and that's actually the direction that I was expecting the deer to come from. But early that morning, I had seen a couple of does running from that reclamation that I was talking about earlier. I had seen him in velvet, and I thought that maybe he might have been pushing those does. And they run around the end of the ridge, and but it wasn't very long after that I heard him a coming, and of course he looked like a 200-inch deer to me anyway, coming through the woods. And as soon as I seen him, I recognized him, But he gave me a 25-yard shot, and of course, I drilled him, but he went probably 45 to 50 yards, and he was down. So
it was I guess you could probably see him. The instant gratification was there for that. That's I think I'd have a heart attack if a deer that big walked in front of me. There's one on our lease, Double D. He's not quite that big, but he's a big deer, and I don't know if I'd die or he'd die, but somebody would if the situation came around.
Well, I think you might be surprised at how you. To me, I mean, it might be different for other people, but to me, whenever I have a deer, especially a specific deer that I'm after, but a deer of that quality, seems like it's all business whenever one like that comes up on you, and you're so focused.
And I don't know if you know this, Nathan, or not, but one of the patterns I found with deer are annual patterns. They seem to stick to annual patterns over any predictability than anything. I've got bucks. I can run trail cameras, and one of my main things with scouts is running cameras for like this past year, 2016. I ran cameras to scout for 2017 just to try to figure out some of these bucks, rut ranges, and they will run the same rut ranges year to year from what I've seen. And even in earlier season, even in October, I've got bucks down to almost the exact day being in the same place. And I've had a couple bucks actually be in the same place on the exact same day during daylight. If you get the weather, the weather is the main thing. You got to have that weather. If you ain't got the weather, you ain't up.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in, the barometric pressure and all that. Temperature drops, obviously. If I was here in Wyoming, everybody jumped or killed a buck we called BK. He was a good 130, 135 inch deer. And, I told John that morning that before I about killed a son of four-wheeler up there. That's another day.
Another story for another day.
Yeah, we about got killed up there, but I told him, I was like, somebody's killing a deer this morning because we had it had been cold. We had about a 12-degree temperature drop that morning, John.
Yeah.
It dropped down to 22, and the pressure. Or no, I take that back. It had warmed up a little bit, and the pressure rose. I think it got up to like 30.5, 30.6 that morning. And I told John, I was like, somebody's getting a shot or killing the deer. And we was hunting that buck we called Double D, and sure enough, John Miller, he's got that lucky horseshoe up his butt. He killed that buck within an hour. And then I was sitting there hunting in Wyoming County, and, my Spartan cameras were running in Logan County, and they were just blowing up. I had mature bucks running everywhere on my cameras, and I was sick of my stomach. I was like, I need to be in Logan County because I had 3 or 4 shooters going crazy. But
that was
like at the annual pattern, I'm a firm believer in keeping an eye on what a buck's doing and where he's traveling at. Right now, and especially if you catch him doing it twice, and what you get. We were talking right after John got cut off. You get 2 or 3 years of history on a deer, you've got a really good shot at killing him because he normally is going to be doing pretty close to that same thing.
Yeah,
year to year.
that's something a lot of people don't think about, and I've noticed that too. The last 4 or 5 years of running just 15, 20 trail cameras, if you let a deer live, he'll do the same thing over and over and over and over again. If you watch him and let him grow, that's a neat fact about deer, folks. If you're listening to that, and it's not every deer, but most of them do keep those same annual patterns.
Yeah, they're all different. They'll all do their. They're just like us. They've all got their own little quirks. They got their own personalities and things they like to do and things they don't like to do. But some of them are bullies, some of them are scaredy cats or this and that. But overall, they are a deer, and there's only a couple of things that motivate them.
One thing I remember about that day, Josh, me and you about froze to death riding up on top of that mountain on a four-wheeler. That was the coldest I think I've ever been in my life. I was lucky I could hide behind you. I about froze to death, man. That was rough. That was
my fingers have been a long time.
It was how long? But we got about a 15-20 minute ride up to the top, so it was a cold morning. The deer you killed in southern West Virginia. After you got him and everything, how long did it take you to get him out? I mean, were you way back in there? Was it pretty accessible, or?
No, actually, it wasn't too bad. You know how those counties are; they're
straight up, straight down,
yeah, everywhere. So it's actually, to me, southern West Virginia is probably one of the easiest places I've ever hunted to get deer out. It is steep, rough country, but usually there's not a 4-wheeler trail too far away. So
true on that. Great buck. That's a
downhill.
That's a dream deer for anybody. That's hopefully one day that I can put my hands on one like that. We got one close, Double D, but that's a dream come true there. Hey guys, real quick, all our viewers, this will be part 1 of this interview. We are going to have a part 2 of it. Thank you guys for listening to part 1. We're going to give a shout out real quick to Spartan Trail Cameras. Thank them for supporting us. They're a huge part of what we do and how we hunt. They've changed it's an innovation, and it is one of the biggest factors to our success each year. If you can, go check them out, HCO Outdoors. Great products, great customer service. And again, this is the Whitetail Anonymous podcast number 6, part 1. And please stay tuned for part 2.